we now have these reactions trickling, and I understand we have with us at this point live Mr. Soli Sorabjee, very, very eminent counsel joining us to give us his opinion. Mr. Sorabjee, I can't tell you how grateful we are to have your time and your wisdom shared with us. I want to first understand, from your point of view, do you believe this was a last resort, or do you believe this was political? Because we're now getting different views on this entire impeachment motion.
You see, the whole idea to ensure the independence of the judiciary, to make sure that they have a security of tenure. So a Chief Justice or a judge cannot be removed because of the executive's fancy in doing so. At the same time, the Chief Justice is not above the law. He can be impeached, but impeached on what ground? For serious misbehavior. Now, serious misbehavior, you cannot conclude from the fact that you think certain order of his is wrong, is not correct. It rather goes beyond the normal function of the judiciary. If you do that, and if you start impeaching the Chief Justice on grounds like this, then, my God, the very independence of the judiciary will be at stake. And if that happens, democracy will be under siege in our country. Now, I'm very sorry that even people who should know better have just signed the impeachment motion as if it's like removing a mablata from an office. You are dealing with the exalted office of the Chief Justice. Please remember, of course impeach him, he's not above the law, but there should be solid, substantial, cogent grounds for doing so. And I'm afraid, from what I heard in the morning from Kapil Sibal, the grounds he mentioned in the letter, in the petition which he gave to the Vice Chairman, Vice President for impeachment, none of those grounds are really making out a ground for impeachment. I mean, you may not agree with the order, so what, to impeach him? What happens then? This will set a very bad precedent, and I'm totally against it. In fact, I'm very distressed that this should happen in our country.
Well, Mr. Sorabjee, I want to, read out to you charge number 5 here particularly, which says abuse of exercise of power in choosing to send sensitive matters to particular benches by misusing his authority in an attempt to influence the outcome. This would be a charge not just against the one individual, but when we say benches, that brings into question other judges as well, insinuating perhaps that other judges are influenceable and other judgments should be questioned. Do you believe that that goes beyond the scope and should not have been said at all?
No, Faye. After all, he's the master of the roster. He knows which cases should be sent to which benches. Of course, it should not be done in an arbitrary manner. He shouldn't send cases dealing with income tax and fiscal jurisprudence to a bench which has no knowledge of the subject and deals with criminal matters. So, accordingly, a bench which is well versed in criminal matters should not be given matters dealing with fiscal matters. But these are matters of judgment. This is not a ground for impeachment. And I don't understand how any judge can say that certain cases should be allocated to me or allocated to us. Unless you find that there's a definite policy that the Chief Justice is following, for example, not giving cases of a certain nature to a certain class of judges, targeting a certain community in the allocation of cases. In a cases of such extreme nature, you can say there's a misbehavior, but not because of error of judgment, because this will set a very bad precedent to repeat it. And I'm sorry to say it's happened to us in our country. We are proud of our judiciary. When I go abroad, I say, look, we have a free press, we have an independent judiciary. People will say, Soli Sorabjee, forget your independent judiciary. Your Chief Justice is facing an impeachment motion. What do you say about that? I don't know what I'll say.
Mr. Sorabjee, the press conference that we had this morning, you yourself said that you were very distressed by it. There are some views to say that perhaps this could have been done within Parliament, but without having such a public press conference, reading out charges, and the word charge was used when they were in fact just accusations. Do you think this was handled badly and should have been done with more taste?
Of course, it should have been done more wisely. The judiciary should sort out these problems itself. Don't allow politicians to get in. Once that happens, we are on a very slippery slope. But today the question is impeachment of Chief Justice on grounds which I think are totally untenable and not grounds for impeachment at all. I won't even dismiss a Namrata on charges that did this, they did wrong. After all, there are errors of judgment. There isn't a definite policy the Chief Justice has been following, targeted against any particular community or in favor of a particular community or things like that. I'm very much against the impeachment motion.
Yes.
That's my view. Go on.
Yet, in the era of Twitter and social media and, of course, live news, we will have this discussed threadbare in the next 24 hours. These 5 charges will also be discussed threadbare. Do you believe that they will perhaps leave a stain on our Supreme Court and on our judiciary that might be permanent?
Well, it will not reflect well on the judiciary. You see, what I'm most concerned with is the public's perception, which is the correct perception, of the independence of the judiciary, and that the judiciary is discharging its functions without fear or favor, that should not be affected. This may very affect the public perception, and that, to my mind, is very distressing and very unhealthy development in this matter. It could have been sorted out. Chief Justice also could have taken them, the other judges, more in confidence, talked to them. I don't know what happened, but that's the thing of the past. We have to think of the future and see that things don't go beyond repair.
Mr. Sorabjee, we've seen, of course, a no-confidence motion being moved in Parliament. As Indians, we saw that happen over and over again. This is the first time anything of this sort has happened with regards to the Honorable Chief Justice of our Supreme Court. Do you believe this is being politicized? Because there was again, there is a rift in the opinions. On one hand, people believe, Prashant Bhushan was speaking with us earlier, he believed that there was no other choice, this was the last resort. But a lot of other voices say, this is politics. Should politics have any room at all in our judiciary?
Not at all. Not at all. If we want to keep our judiciary independent and we want the people to have confidence in our judiciary, politics should be way out completely. And Prashant Bhushan says it's a sad day. Why? Because you don't get a favourable order, it becomes a sad day. If you get a favourable order, it becomes a glorious day. You can't go on these considerations, on these grounds. You are impeaching the Chief Justice here, not dealing with the Deputy Mamlatdar and asking him to go on leave, or removing him from one post and sending him to another. You're dealing with I'm not so impressed with the Chief Justice's personal personality, or the position he occupies. What happens to that when such impeachment motions are brought against him? And look at the way the people have gone on. Have they applied their minds to it? Have they thought of what really constitutes proved misbehavior? I don't think so. I think this is a very sorry state of affairs. And and I'm glad people in the Congress party, I understand even Manmohan Singh is not in favor, apart from Salman Khurshid. I mean, these are people who know how things work, how constitution provisions should be worked out, and how ultimately the independence of the judiciary should be secured. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Sorabjee, I also want to understand from you now going forward, of course, with these charges or with these accusations that have been made, where the Speaker of the Rajya Sabha will have to look at this motion and decide what happens next. There will be a committee that is set up. So, while the process actually plays out, in the meantime, this discussion will perhaps go on in the public domain. Do you believe that on some level people should
Yes.
refrain from discussing it, because, like you said, it will damage the impression of the judiciary in people's minds?
But yeah, you can't prevent people from discussing it and passing comments. After all, this is a democracy. But people who do that must do it with some restraint. And people who listen to such people should also realize that people have made these comments without realizing the significance of their comments and their implications. But we are not living in a perfect world. Judges are not infallible. We all make mistakes. But most important is, see, the institution is not affected. Its prestige, its authority is not in any way diminished. That's the most important thing. Justice Mishra or some other Mishra doesn't make any difference. I don't know him personally. But I'm most concerned that the Chief Justice's office should not lose his importance, and the public should not start feeling that, oh, now we won't get any real justice from the Supreme Court. After all, judges themselves are fighting. That's a very wrong impression that has been created, unfortunately, by the press conference by these 4 judges. I'm not at all in favor of the press conference, but it's happened. Now we can't get to retrace it. Now let the judiciary resolve the issue itself in consultation, in a spirit of cordiality with the Chief Justice, and none of the 4 judges should really stick to their own point of view, but realize the larger interests of the country in having an independent judiciary. It's difficult to say, it's easy to say that, difficult to do it, but that's the difficulty these judges have created, and they must solve it themselves.
Mr. Sorabjee, you said, of course, a few unfavorable judgments are no reason to go up with an impeachment motion. Do you believe this perhaps sends out a bad message to the rest of the judiciary that if you don't, put judgments out in our favor, that Parliament will move these sort of motions that will bring into question your credibility? Is that in some way bullying?
Of course. That's the part which I'm more upset about. It will. Of course, judges will not be bothered about it, but after all, they're human. They may be affected. But this is the worst thing that could happen to the independence of the judiciary. Please don't affect the public's faith in the judiciary. It's one institution in which they believe, despite all its faults, anything happens, any matter of public importance, appoint a judge. Anything which requires real thing, let a Supreme Court or High Court judge decide it. That confidence should not be eroded. That confidence should be maintained. And now, let's hope we all get together. Even the legal fraternity should act, speak with one voice.
Right.
I think politics does not come in the matter.
Mr. Sorabjee, there is a statement that's come out now from Mr. Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, who's also a lawyer. He says, my preliminary reaction to the impeachment motion filed today is clear. This is a revenge petition after the falsehood of the Congress party has been established in the Justice Lawyer death case. It is an attempt to intimidate a judge and send a message to other judges that if you don't agree with us, 50 MPs are enough for a revenge action. Charges read out on these issues, which have been settled by judicial orders and precedent. Some issues are stale and trivial and have nothing to do with judicial functions. Do you agree with him, Mr. Sorabjee?
Well, I do agree, though I don't express myself in those emphatic terms. I do agree. But if the judges are strong-willed persons, they won't be affected by it. They can't be affected because of the threat of possible impeachment motion. They must do their duty, and they're not fit to be there. But everyone is not of that particular quality, particular fiber, and we must see that this thing never happens again. Please keep politicians out of this. It's a matter for the judiciary to solve, and I hope to heaven that they solve it amicably expeditiously to the satisfaction of everyone. And
support. You said Dr. Manmohan Singh was not in support. We know that Mr. Chidambaram has not made a comment. Mr. Salman Khurshid did make a comment. Do you believe that within the party as well that there is a rift on agreement of whether or not they should proceed on this motion?
obviously, there is disagreement. These are senior people. They know exactly the implications of an impeachment motion against the Chief Justice. Manmohan Singh, of course, is one of the most senior politicians. He is the one who knows how the constitutions work. He understands the importance of the judiciary, independence of the judiciary. And these impeachment motions are not to be brought in at the top of a hat. So when I said that, I only went by the reports which I read about Manmohan Singh, Salman Khurshid. I don't know about Manmohan Singh, what he said, I don't know about that, but leave him alone. Salman Khurshid made a very good statement. I'm in complete agreement with what he stated.